Torrance Benson was the other defendant who was found guilty of racketeering, conspiracy, and firearms charges as well. These two individuals were part of a violent street gang on the west side of Chicago, the Wicked Town faction of the traveling vice lords, and Donald Lee was the leader of that gang. And this was truly a remarkable case, an investigation that lasted several years and ultimately resulted in the convictions that the jury returned earlier today. Among other things, in this case, the indictment actually charged 13 individuals overall, 11 who had previously pled guilty and are awaiting sentencing. And what the evidence throughout the course of the investigation and at trial revealed, just a large amount of violent activity. 19 murders, 19 attempted murders, other robberies and assaults on people, as well as drug trafficking on the west side of Chicago, and threats of violence in order to protect and to promote that drug trafficking during the course of the criminal activity, which lasted for several years. And ultimately the culmination led to the guilty verdicts at the trial today. In particular, and of note, Donald Lee was held responsible by the jury for 3 murders and providing firearms for 3 additional murders. And Torrance Benson, he was found responsible for 1 murder and 3 attempted murders as well. I'm happy to answer some questions, but before I do, there's a lot of people who deserve a lot of thanks for all their hard work on this case. First, I'd like to thank all the prosecutors who worked on this case and the people in my office, not only the prosecutors but the staff members who worked with them over the years. Just truly, truly remarkable work, persistent work for a long period of time to put this case together. Also, I'd like to thank all the law enforcement officers who worked on this case, and the list is long and distinguished. First and foremost, ATF in the Chicago Police Department. They led this investigation for several years, but they had a lot of help along the way. We had other federal partners like DEA and FBI who also participated over the years as well as other local partners and state partners, including the Illinois State Police, Cook County Sheriff's Police. Another federal partner, the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, did remarkable work in connection with this case, as well as other law enforcement partners who helped comprise the Chicago HIDTA, the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Task Forces. Just a lot of really outstanding work by them over the years to help us hold people accountable in this trial. In addition to that, I'd like to thank the several people who came forward during the course of this case. I mean, this case lasted nearly 2 months. We called over 100 witnesses. I think we had more than 1,000 exhibits at trial. But among those witnesses were individuals who were victims of the violent crimes or loved ones of the victims of violent crimes, or other people who witnessed these violent crimes over the years. And I can say we are not able to make these cases without 2 things happening. One, without their courage in coming forward in order to hold people responsible for the violent conduct that's happening in all these neighborhoods. And the second thing is without the effective work by our law enforcement officers, the Chicago Police Department, ATF, and others to work with those individuals in order to ultimately to learn what we learned from them, and ultimately have them come into this courtroom and bring these horrific acts to light for a jury who ultimately found these 2 defendants responsible for the conduct that they committed. I want to turn it over to my partners here in a second from ATF and the Chicago Police Department to say a word or 2. But I want to say one more word about this investigation in particular. This is truly a remarkable case. And I say that as someone who's been around for a little while. I've been 16 years as a federal prosecutor, most of that time working gang cases. And I would say gang cases like this one, but there's not many gang cases like this one. This was truly remarkable in its scope and its breadth, and it really is a result of the persistence of law enforcement throughout. Like a lot of cases, this started small. It started with drug buys and wiretaps and looking at drug trafficking on the west side of Chicago. And through following the evidence where it leads, and the persistence and the diligence and really the tireless work of many, many people, it ultimately led to a RICO investigation and RICO charges involving, as I mentioned before, 19 murders, 19 attempted murders, and a lot of other acts of violence. And so I commend everyone involved for all the real hard work they did on this case. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the acting special agent in charge of ATF here in Chicago, who will say a word or two. We'll hear from the Chicago Police Department for a word or two, and then I'm happy to come back and answer a couple questions if anyone has any. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeffrey Matthews. I'm the acting special agent in charge of the Chicago Field Division. I'm here today to applaud the outstanding work and investigative efforts of the men and women of the Chicago Police Department, the U.S. Attorney's Office, ATF, and all the other federal, state, and local law enforcement officers that contributed to this investigation. Through their tireless efforts, the investigative team, specifically those line prosecutors, officers, detectives, and agents, removed a truly significant, violent organization from the streets of Chicago. This violent organization was responsible for multiple shootings, homicides. Through this case, they removed drivers of violence, trigger pullers, and helped make the streets of Chicago a safer place for the residents here. With that, I would like to end my brief comments with just say thank you again to the investigative team, to the prosecutors, to the detectives, and for everyone that contributed to this case. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Deputy Chief Dwayne DeVries from the Bureau of Counterterrorism, Chicago Police Department. I'd just like to reiterate what's already been said, that we wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for the hard work of our officers, our agents, and all the attorneys that are involved in this case. It's an amazing case, tireless efforts by all of them. And that being said, we stand here today due to the relationships that we have. These type of cases can't be worked without the Chicago Police Department, without our Cook County Sheriffs, our federal partners. And we have such great relationships today with those federal agencies that we're able to work a case like this, target these violent individuals, and get a long-term effect instead of just a quick hit. And without our partners here standing behind us, this doesn't happen. So thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Chief, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can you talk a little bit more about this in the context of the current fight against violent crime? I think we obviously just mentioned like the long-term effect of cases like this. Obviously, the battle continues. Can you talk just about the ripple effect of a case like this?
Yeah, I think it's pretty profound and it's impactful, right? It takes a long time to put a case together like this, but you know, when you're able to learn about multiple acts of violence that are committed by a group, and it's done either to protect and promote particular criminal activity they have or in retaliation for other crimes that are committed, it allows us to see the full picture, and it allows us to reach a kind of greater breadth of people who are ultimately responsible. I mean, there's murders that happen in this city every day and shootings that happen in this city every day, and I fear that sometimes the people of Chicago and the surrounding areas, you know, they don't see enough people that are arrested and charged for this. But in the background, we're working really hard as law enforcement all the time. And what a case like this does is takes the really great work that's being done by Chicago detectives each and every day, right? You know, they're close to making a case, but they're just not quite there. When you add the federal resources into a case like that, and you take what you learn about the entirety of a group's criminal conduct, that's how you're able to piece these murders together, these robberies together, the drug trafficking together, you know, really into one charge, you know, with kind of multiple prongs of those charges, to hold people accountable, and that's really our job. You know, and you've heard me say this a lot. I mean, we need to hold people accountable for the violent crimes they're committing in the city of Chicago. The offenders on the streets right now are completely emboldened. In cases like this, they do make an impact. They make a specific impact on the people who are going to be in custody for a long, long, long time for what they did. And it's going to make an impact for the people who are still on the streets committing these crimes. I hope there's a lot of gang members who are on the streets right now who they see this and they think, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the next Donald Lee, who was a gang leader who's now looking at a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment based upon what he did for years.
So the defense attorneys made a big deal out of some of the deals that the other defendants got.
Yep.
And people plead guilty to multiple murders. One guy 6, I think, and was looking at now 20 to 30-year recommendation. Do you have any answer to that? Is that just how these cases are handled? Or is there no way around that?
Yeah, well, I mean, so look, so I think in some ways you've kind of answered the question. So in making a case like this, right, we have a lot of people that are ultimately charged, and these individuals, they have a chance to relieve that pressure valve from them a little bit by cooperating, by coming in and telling the truth about what they did in concert with others. And so there are cooperation deals like this. and the one that you mentioned, and there's, there were multiple cooperation deals in this case, but, for an individual who's committed murders as part of gang activity, for a 20 to 30 year sentence, I mean, that ensures that that person is going to be held accountable for the conduct that they committed. But there is a benefit to them, which is 20 to 30 years as opposed to more time or potentially life, because they were able to help us, ultimately solve more murders and hold other people responsible for those crimes. Anything further? Again, thanks again for everyone being here. Appreciate it.